by the rivers of Babylon. Yeah, we sat down and we cried when we remembered Jerusalem. We were sick, Lord, near to dying. Oh,
Shalom, shalom, family. Welcome to another Tanakh review. My name is Zurishaddai, one of the teachers of congregation D.C.B, CHOKMAH, located in the Red Hook section of Brooklyn, New York. Giving glory and praise to the Most High King of the universe for all things and everything, food, clothing, and shelter, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. I'm grateful to this mighty King for my life and the life of all of you. Continuous respect to all of you who tune in on a weekly basis, and consider that this actual program is worth your while, and try to give the best breakdown and the best of us, and trying to bring you this actual program. And first and foremost, always glory to the Most High God, which is the objective of what we do, you know, in terms of our congregation, and trying to uplift the name of the Most High and try to expose His word to those who might not have been exposed to it in the past, or maybe are looking to enhance some of your understanding of this book. And we pray that the Most High God will be with you all, and that you'll be receptive enough to be able to take in what is it that's being brought forth in the program. So we pray for all our people. I pray that the Most High God continue to be with the leadership of our congregation, even with my brother, Chief Prince Jediel Ben Yissaskar, praying that the Creator will continue to bless him and his family, and also for all of our elders and all of our brothers and sisters, and all of you out there on the internet land. I bid to your early Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom Aleichem, and I pray that the Most High God will bless you all. Today we'll be going over the book of Proverbs once again, this time chapter 13, and it will be done by none other than one of my teachers and one of my mentors, even Nasik Zurishaddai Ben Yehudah. How are you, Nasik?
Great, Baruch Hashem. First of all, I'd like to give praise to the Supreme Eternal Universe, God of my forefathers, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob. And due respect to the platform, we're on the D.C.B channel platform, spiritual leader, Chief Prince Yeriel Ben Yissaskar, the host Chief Uziel, the Princess Chief Maureen, Cornine, Rabbinate, brothers and sisters, greet you all in the time of my forefathers. Shalom Aleichem, and an early Shabbat Shalom. And I like to start off as I usually do. Adonai Septai Titakafiyagi Tila Teaka, O Lord, down my lips. Mouth shall declare thy praise. We had already finished covering, we were doing Proverbs 13. And the reason I always go back over the Sidra a little bit, because that's what most people do throughout those that follow some more like a rabbinic tradition. They go over a Sidra each week, a portion of scriptures in a particular order. And I just highlight some of the things there. And Proverbs basically is not so much new information, it's just enhancing and remind you of the things that you should know. So when I go to the Proverbs, I might go a little fast, mostly read through it, because it's mostly information you should know, but it gives people an opportunity to at least say, I went through all the Proverbs, at least, you know, on a weekly basis before a year's out. So, and some people might take a 31-day month, as I said, and do one Proverbs a day, and then within a 31-day month, they completed the Proverbs. But this on this particular portion, I'm here to share certain insights, highlight certain insights on the Sidra. So sometimes I might gloss over certain parts. For the most part, for most people I'm around and affiliated with, they already read this particular portion already. And by the time most of y'all see it, it's just the day before the new portion come out. So, and I like to leave, and I got to remind people that I'm not trying to change people's viewpoints. When I do share insights, I try to give you another point of view, in that sense. So that's all I'm basically is. I'm not. It doesn't matter what your ethnicity, ideology. I'm sharing certain insights that you can see perhaps and understand where I'm coming from, or people that think similar to what I do coming from, and hopefully it can also um, hopefully as well hopefully help you broaden your horizons, and then like I said, always say any mistakes were my own, and you can always leave a question concerning what I said in the chat. So that's I don't I don't ask for the likes that much, but it's always good for the platform I'm on with the likes. But basically, I'm more interested in any your thoughts on the message that I presented, or if you have questions that I'm able to ask concerning those things that I brought up. So that being said, we're starting in a new book called in Hebrew Shemot, which means names. In the scriptures, most scriptures, it says Exodus, which is from the Greek term, which means to depart, a departure. And the reason that it uses the Hebrew term names, because that's how it starts off. In Genesis, we were speaking about family, individual families, certain families. Now we're getting ready to deal with a nation, a family that developed into the nation, and partially fulfilling a major promise that was promised to the prophet Abraham. I mean, to our father Abraham. So, and he was technically called a prophet by God anyway, in Genesis. So, I like to open up. Exodus, it starts from the book of Shemot. This portion starts from the beginning of Exodus, and it continues to the 6th chapter of Exodus, and ends. It ends in the first verse of the 6th chapter before we go into a new portion. So I'm just going to read a little bit of it, because it's always important to think about the title and some of the issues that come up in here. Because in the book of Exodus, though it says names, we're going to have issues about names within this particular portion of the Sidra. And I will speak on that as we move forward. So in the first chapter, first verse, now these are the names of the sons of Israel who came into Egypt with Jacob. Every man came with his household: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin, Dan, and Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. And all the souls that came out of the loins of Jacob, were 70 souls. And Joseph was in Egypt already. And Joseph died, and all his brethren, and all that generation. And the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly, and multiplied and waxed exceedingly mighty, and the land was filled with them. Now, that means they've been there for quite a while. And when I know, always had this big discussion about the 430 years that we was in Egypt, but that's another thing, another issue to account. But actually, from the time of the patriarch Jacob, and then the rest of the tribes went down there, not counting from that time, give or take up a few years, we actually was in Egypt, and during this particular portion, before we made the exodus out of Egypt, before we was sent out, 210 years. That's basically accurate what we have. And it's important as we go forward, we're going to find out some some insights in reference to that time period. But it says Joseph died and all his brethren. So most will say Joseph had died first, simply because of the wording here, saying Joseph died and then all his brethren. Now his brethren died, and then finally Joseph died. So Joseph, being towards the youngest, he is next to the youngest. Benjamin is basically 6 years or 7 years the most younger than Joseph. And we know Joseph died at 110. So that means that he died before most of his brothers. And you wonder why he died so early. We go by the literal writing that we see here. So that's just something to, ask and discuss. And in the 8th verse, it says, now there arose a new king over Egypt, who knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, behold, the people of the children of Israel are too many and too mighty for us. Come, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply, and it come to pass that when there befalleth us any war, they also join themselves unto our enemies and fight against us and get them up out of the land. Now, I'm not going to go into spend time with the different historical events, Hyksos and Shemitic tribes coming up there, and all that, and about the the dynasties. But one of the things I like to highlight in this particular portion, it said a new king. All right, now one, and it said he knew not Joseph. I had no knowledge of Joseph. One, you would say, what leader of a nation doesn't know his nation's history? I mean, so do it literally means, now you could debate on both sides. If you take it literal, then that means he's really, really a dumb individual, king, that don't know the history of the people he ruled over, which is his people. All right, so that make him really, really look, ignorant, an imbecile. But yet, you can also look at it and say he refused to acknowledge all the good that Joseph did. Or you could say, and you could discuss it further, could it be a means of paying back the children of Israel when this particular king now comes up with a national policy? All right. Now, this is the first actual instance where you find what we call racism. When it comes down to this particular portion of Exodus. So now we have a thing of racism because they said other people fighting against Egypt, and these people, the Israelites, would join the other people, or stand back and say we have no skin in this game. Whatever the case is, they already said we don't like them because they might join with our enemies. Not that they join with the enemies. So this is a racist thing here. Because they tell you all they did was fruitful, multiply, and they filled in the land. So they're doing all right. And you say, well, the famine didn't last that long. So why are they still there? If they filled the land of Egypt, could they not went back to Canaan land? So sometimes the Creator had to set a fire on us sometimes. And because we become too comfortable in a place where we don't belong. And so therefore, 11th verse, therefore they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens. And they built for Pharaoh store cities, Pithom, Ramses. All right. we didn't work on pyramids. I just want to make it clear, because a lot of people think, some branches think the Israelites worked on the pyramids and everything like that. No, they didn't work on the pyramid. They tell you right here what we did, and later on, they're going to describe our job description. So that's what they did, and they tell you with the locations: Pithom and Ramses. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied, and the more they spread abroad, and they were a dread because of the children of Israel. And the Egyptians made the children of Israel to serve with rigor. So before I go, I just want to bring out this other little point here to finish out this section. And they made their lives bitter with hard service in mortar and in brick, and in all manner of service in the field. And all their service wherein they made them serve with rigor. No matter what kind of job you had, if you're just supposed to bring water, they made that hard for you to do. So they was actually specialists as brick makers, but they say they worked them hard on that area and try to afflict them on that area. And, something like you can be on a job, and sometimes you might have these supervisors that become abusive in their authority. So this is what they did. Now, one of the things is this Pharaoh this king that rose up over Egypt. He said, let's deal with wisely. So he made a national commitment. The people themselves didn't think of it right away. So what we might miss is that this Pharaoh that raised up, Professor, I'm doing this for the good of Egypt. I'm doing this for the good of you. We know that Pharaoh, before Joseph came down to Egypt and during the famine, wasn't as wealthy as before the famine, until Joseph got there and got 20% of the property. Everybody paying 20% taxes to Pharaoh, and also all the land belonged to Pharaoh. So Pharaoh never had that much property. When the people sold their land, Joseph also put them different places. So could that be a thing? Well, we need to straighten this out, because one guy come from prison, get that high up, and look what he done to y'all. Look at our position. I'm trying to work with you. Could that be a policy? And said, let's deal with them wisely. Wisely how? If you're making me work hard, where's the wisdom at it? Unless you might think, this is for the good of the state, and you might start off soft and increase your tenacity over the job, because it said this is what we did. We had an occupation. We was working on behalf of the country of Egypt, but then it became a burden. Also became when they started afflicting us. It's like somebody said, tell you to do a job. And I know up north they have these different places where guys work on constructions, and they might not be unionized and everything like that. So they work over here. When they're doing a project, get certain guys hired over here to get a project, and some people don't get paid, and they still working. And they say, your pay gonna come, your pay gonna come, your pay gonna come. And some people wind up getting in the problem because they didn't get their pay on time, and they still had bills that came on time. And, so there's a lot of things that could take place in reference to why they working in the first place so hard, how they get them to work in the first place so hard, unless you're saying this is for the good of the country Egypt, and you here, so wouldn't you want to help? So they still multiply. So his thing was to deal with them wisely and afflict them, beat them down. But then that wasn't good enough, because they still multiplying more than the Egyptians. And usually when a person is afflicted, they come back home psychologically and they embrace their significant others. And as a result, you're going to have more offspring after the process of time, because you're looking for that comfort. 15th verse, it says, and the king of Egypt spoke to the Hebrew midwives, of whom the name of one was Shiphrah and the name of the other Pur. And he said, when you do the office of the midwife to the Hebrew women, you shall look upon the birth stools. If it be a son, then you shall kill him. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live. But the midwives feared God and did not as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the men children alive. All right, before I go into this area here, when you look at it in the Hebrew, it's like, it's like it caused the females to live. Now, if the edict is just to slay the men children that's born on this, when so they come to this world, kill them, then all right, that's all you need to say. If it's a male, slay it. Make sure he die. Why is it that now you're saying add this extra thing? If it's a female, let her live. Don't destroy her. Do your best to make sure she survives. Why that extra thing there when just simply kill all the men and that's it? Anybody that's a male, kill him. Then it understood. If she a female, you're free of that. But you're supposed to make sure that one survive. For what? For what purpose? So this is some of the things there. And you notice he said he had Hebrew midwives, so it would be like a rule, or like, I really ain't got no particular beef or issue with y'all. That's why I'm gonna have these women, that's Hebrew midwives, to do that, because it's not an Egyptian that's doing it. I didn't make this a national policy yet. It's just an order coming from the king for these two women that's over the houses of women, because 2 women cannot be at every house when somebody's having birth. When you're talking, a couple million people. So 2 women is not going to be over that. But they're over they're over other midwives and women and stuff like that that deal with that. So it's always, an issue whether it was I know rabbinically they say who they are, with other names, but I just like to stick with the Peshat in the book as I speak for most parts in this area here. So now, as we go further, the question was, and the king of Egypt called for the midwives and said unto them, why have you done this thing, and have saved the men children alive? And the midwives said unto Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not as the Egyptian women, but they are lively and are deliberate ere the midwives come unto them. And God dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and waxed very mighty. And it came to pass, because the midwives feared God, that he made them houses. All right. So that's a discussion, always a form of debate. What did God actually do? How did God make them houses? Wasn't they living somewhere in the first place? So what do that mean? And then it goes on to say, and Pharaoh charged all his people, saying, every son that is born you shall cast into the river, and every daughter you shall save alive. All right. So now, here, you must save the girls, but get rid of that. Once again, like I said, it's enough to say, cast the sons in the river. But why are you going to save the girls? For what purpose? So I kind of remind you of different things throughout history. But this is what Pharaoh did now. He said he made it a national policy. So it's no secret now that Pharaoh is in on the hostility against the Israelite people that's in Egypt. we know when the Egyptians dealt with them, he said, deal wisely, make things hard for them. Increase, make it difficult. And anything you do, try to find a way to make it hard for them. And that could be subtle. And you might think, hey, this is these individuals. This ain't coming from the top. But now, this is coming from the top. It's no longer, I'm going to conceal this. This is becoming a national policy of safety. And fortunately, most people didn't live that close to the Nile, but enough did. And I just want to read a couple more because there's some important things here that I bring out. And there went there went a man of the house of Levi, and took a wife of the daughter of Levi, and the woman conceived and bore a son. And when she saw him that he was a goodly child, she hid him 3 months. And when he could no longer hide him, she took for him an ark of bulrushes and daubed it with slime and pitch, and put the child therein and laid it in the flags by the river brink. And his sister stood afar off to know what would be done to him. And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe in the river, and her maidens walked along by the riverside. And she saw the ark among the flags, and sent her handmaid to fetch it. And she opened it and saw it, even a child. And behold, a boy that wept. And she had compassion on him and said, this is one of the Hebrews' children. Then said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go and call a nurse of the Hebrew woman, that she may nurse the child for thee? And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, go. And the maiden went and called the child's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said unto her, take this child away and nurse it for me, and I will give thee thy wages. And the woman took the child and nursed it, and the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she called his name Moses, and said, because I drew him out of the water. Now, I just read that because there's lots going on here. One, we have women's doing things against national policy that's under the penalty of death. It was death for the children who would have not done anything in this world. And if you violate, that would be a death sentence. So the midwives was the first to stand against a government policy that was inhumane, risking their life because they say they fear God more than the government that they live under. So that's why they made sure that if a child looked like he wasn't going to make it, they helped him make it. So this is a bold move. Then now you have a mother that has a child. And we know later on from the story that Moses' mother, we know her name, we know she had 2 other older children. That what we find here is that she had this child and she hid him for 3 months. Now, that's a difficult thing to do. To hide a baby that's subject to cry, to get your attention for 3 months, and then wondering who would tell the authorities that you had a child and you hiding him. Now, some say Moses was, premature. He was born early. That's just some views. Because some people might have their child, as early as 6 months instead of going through the whole cycle of 9 months. So, you could do the math and figure out, and make a conjecture in reference to 6 months. She was pregnant. I knew she was pregnant, but she didn't have the child. I'm expecting her to have it on this date. But 3 months later, the child's not here. So what happened? Did she abort it or did she comply to the edict? That could be a possible viewpoint. You could discuss those things. How she was able to hold that child for 3 months. And the children not talking about it. Or the neighbors not talking about it. And did she hide them from the neighbors, everybody inclusive, or just from the Egyptians? So these are some of the things you could speak on as you go forward in reference to that situation. And then when she could no longer hide them safely, because now might jeopardize the whole household, because she said safely she couldn't hide them. And what she would have jeopardized, the child or possibly the whole household. These are things that need to be discussed. And then she built an ark. The same word that's used for Noah's ark, it's the exact same word that's used for this particular ark that he built for Moses. Only time you see that word used in scriptures. So, and I know in the English you would see about the Ark of the Covenant and all that, but that's a different word altogether, in Hebrew. The words never interchange. So that this, and it was done the same pitch, within and pitch without, made it, be able to float. So her intentions was not just to toss him into the river to drown him, but hopefully something possibly could save this individual. So she complied literally. And then Pharaoh, her sister standing around to see what's going on. So when we look at all that, then we got this woman, Pharaoh's daughter. And when we look at Pharaoh's daughter, this woman, Pharaoh's daughter, I spoke earlier. We have a book. We open up this particular portion and said the book of Shemot. And yet, in the book of Shemot, as we begin to open up, it means names. And it gives you names of certain individuals. And yet, we come out at this point in time, we don't find Moses' name, mother's name. We don't find his father's name. We don't find his sister's name at this point in time. And he don't have a name that's disclosed until Pharaoh's daughter, as we know later on, gives him a name. And she remains nameless at this point in time. So that's something to think about. We open up with a book of names, but we have some names given and some names anonymous. Some people are anonymous. And then a couple of people we find their names later on. And it's strange that Pharaoh's daughter recognized this to be a Hebrew people. Why she didn't bring him straight home and told the woman to come to the palace and nurse him? Could she still be afraid of the edict? And then how long was the edict? Aaron's only 3 years older than Moses. Aaron didn't have to be under the death threat of being thrown into the river. So he wasn't under that death threat. So when this policy was instituted, and how long did this policy exist? Because sometimes a real harsh, evil policy that's too harsh will last for a moment, but it will last forever. And some people, no matter people being human, will feel a way about doing certain things. That emotion will kick in. When she seen the baby cry, she had that compassion. And yes, she know the rule was to bring it. She didn't trust it to none of her handmaids. And when she asked, how you standing around here and know where to bring this child to? That question was never asked. Which woman you gonna have nurse this child? That question was never asked. But yet, when the child is away, bring her back. And I'm paying her to make sure she take care of him. When you pay him to take care of what kind of lifestyle you want that around the people that's prosecuted. And then, since a child is basically, if you say he was premature, he's only 9 months old, or if he did the 9 months, he just barely made it, a year. Wouldn't that be a suspect child for a woman to take back home, being paid to nurse this child when other people was getting rid of their child? and she was afraid to keep the child in the first place. So it's a lot of issues that need to be, explored. Psychological, emotional, issues that need to be explored, as well as the historical data that's given here in the scripture. So we find that, and then when you bring it back, she calls his name Moses, and said because he drew him out the water. But when we look at that, how did she get that past her father, who was the Pharaoh? The Pharaoh is not named in this story, but yet he's a king. The Pharaoh himself, that's not named in the story, had hostility against the Hebrews, but didn't have hostility against Moses being adopted by his daughter. So you got to look at all that, different connotations that he hate the Hebrews just for being Hebrews, the Israelites for just being Israelites, and had, alleged that they might join the enemy, and had made an edict to wipe them children out. And yet, because his daughter adopted this child, he didn't have a problem with this child. Now that, it's mind-boggling when we look at it like that. But, so whereas he might have been a tyrant in one area, he might have been a loving father in another area, or grandfather in a sense. So, and it says, and we know Moses was wild. It says, and it came to pass, and I'm just going to read a couple more, and then I'm going to skip on through because there's so much stuff I want to bring out and highlight. Is that said, and it came to pass in those days when Moses was grown up, that he went out unto his brethren and looked on their birds, and he saw an Egyptian smiting a Hebrew, one of his brethren. And he looked this way and that way. And when he saw that there was no man, he smote the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. Now that's kind of strange there. All right. Did the Egyptian guy was beating, ran off, the Egyptian let him go, and he was left there alone? Or he came to rescue the guy after he looked this way and that way right away, make sure nobody else was there other than the people involved, and did this. That's we could go everywhere with that scenario and look at it. But the thing is that, one, we know Moses was going to do something wrong. And what do you mean that he grown up? Everybody grows up. All right. When he was weaned, he grew up. And he's going to continue to grow till he reaches maximum and grow. But what do it mean by growing up? And usually when a person grows up, a child is basically only concerned with their wants and desires. That's what a child is concerned with. He knew who his brethren was. He didn't grow up not knowing who he was. Because usually when a child's weaned, it usually be about 3 years. That's used to be close to the maximum time. Child being weaned at 3 years old in ancient times. So he knew his people, but he was satisfied with being raised up on his adopted mother. And I know rabbinically they give her a name. In the Chronicles, we got a name that's similar to that. When you go around in the First Chronicles, somewhere around 4 or so, you can look it up later in the Chronicles. They got a name that's similar to it. We call her, Batia, which is a daughter of Yah. And she adopted the daughter. She was the daughter of Pharaoh. So she is, now she adopts Moses, and gives him a name, so he became her adopted son. But Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, we don't know his name in the story. And we go out the whole saga not knowing this guy's name. We go out the whole saga in the Chumash, in the top, and we don't find her name, and yet we still in the book of names. We do discover who Moses' sister is, who his sister is. We do discover who his older brother is, but his older brother is not even mentioned in this part of the story. His father is not mentioned in this part of the story. So these are some of the things that, warrant a lot of discussion. That is it not, their name is not important now, only their role that they need to play, only their position. So let's go further. And I'm trying to lead to a point right quick before I go into the Proverbs. It says, so he slayed an Egyptian. So he knew he was wrong when he did that. And then it goes on to say, the 13th verse, and he went out the second day, and behold, two men of the Hebrews were striving together. And he said to him that did the wrong, wherefore smitest thou thy brother fellow? And he said, who made thee a ruler and a judge over us? Thinkest thou to kill me as thou didst kill the Egyptian? So there's three things he charged him with. A ruler, a judge, and you think you're going to be an executioner too? Because that's the way he treated the Egyptian the day before, just one day before. And one of the things is, you say, well, who saw? Who saw? Most times you figure that if the guy was rescued, that's the guy the Egyptian was beating. That would be the normal suspect of who telling and who saw what went down. And then it could have been that there was a couple of people hanging around, standing on the side, wouldn't get involved, and stood out the way, out of sight, lest they be a victim themselves, and spot what Moses did after the guy ran away. We don't know. Those are things you could just, ponder and guess at. All right. And Moses feared and said, surely the thing is known. Now, when Pharaoh heard this thing, he sought to slay Moses, but Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian. And he sat down by a well. Now, we know he met the daughters there. Okay, the daughters of Jethro. All right, I'm not going to focus on that part there. All right. I'm going to skip on down. He met, he rescued them, but he always rescuing somebody or stepping to somebody to try to aid and assist. He went through a development there. I spoke about it before, the development of getting physically involved, just speaking on the subject. And then finally, when it comes to the daughters, he just, of Jethro, he stands to the side and be on the right side of issues. So these are some of the developments that went down when we look at Moses in this area here. But then in the 23rd verse of that second chapter, when we look at it, it said, and it came to pass in the course of those many days that the king of Egypt died, and the children of Israel sighed by reason of the bondage. And they cried, and their cry came up unto God by reason of the bondage. And God heard their groaning, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. And God saw the children of Israel, and God took cognizance of them. Now, you mean tell me God didn't pay attention to them all that time? And this is something they're going to ask. Why it took a while? Mind you, they've been there for a couple hundred years already. So why it took so long? And then when we look at that, they only cried because of the work. They didn't cry and say, I need to escape. I need to leave. Just leave me alone. Let me be so I can live. That was their cry. And we notice that the Creator do not step in till you realize your situation is desperate and you cry out. Sometime, when you know you ain't living according to his standard. But when some people could be not living according to Creator standards, but their oppressor might be more wicked than them. And so therefore the Creator going to have to step in for a balance. We often forget generations ago, he told Abraham the iniquity of the Amorites are not yet fulfilled. When he said the iniquity, he's saying that they're doing wrong now. They're doing wrong right now, but they ain't doing enough wrong. So now the Israelites being afflicted, but they ain't got afflicted enough yet. And then they started to cry out because of their burdens. But they've been there for, a couple of centuries already. And God took cognizance. So God didn't forget. And in third chapter, it says, now Moses was keeping the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, and the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the furthest part of the wilderness, and came to the mountain of God unto Horeb. And the angel of the Lord appeared unto him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. And he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, and the bush was not consumed. And Moses said, I would turn aside now and see this great sight, why the bush is not burned. What is interesting here, it said he seen a vision of an angel there. So the fire looked like an angel. That's what it says here in the book. And the fire looking like an angel, but he concerned, because since the angel looked like a fire, why this bush ain't burned? And in the desert, you're going to find many brush fires in the desert area from the heat of the day. So, and he said, I need to see this great sight here. And you notice it said the angel. Yeah, it didn't say God. It didn't just say the fire. It said it was the messenger. And the messenger don't have no other message. I'm there. I'm just there at this point in time. And Moses, said, I need to see this. Now, who would go to a fiery, anything, and say, I need to get closer. I need to get closer. Well, fire burns. But since they said it ain't burning the bush, do you think you're tougher than the bush? All these good questions that, people need to, discuss. And then it said in the fourth verse, and when the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, God called to him out in the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, here am I. And he said, draw not nigh hither. Put off thy shoes from off thy feet, for the place wherein thou standest is holy ground. Moreover, he said, I am the God of thy father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. All right. Now you notice, if you're not careful, you miss the first part. He said, the God of your father. That's Amram. And then he said, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. So said, you might know some history about Abraham. You might know some history about Isaac. You might know some history about Jacob. But your father still served me and prayed to me. So this the same God your father dealt with, and that might have taught you something about. So then you know that I'm not the strange God that you're encountering. I'm a God that's part of the family legacy. That's what he's saying. And then he goes to the patriarchs that earn certain credits with him. And said, now what makes the ground holy is only because the presence of the Creator is there. It's like the tabernacle. When we had the tabernacle years later, only when the cloud got there and the ark was, stood in one spot and the tabernacle built up there, that ground was holy only because the presence of the Creator essence was there. When the cloud moved, that ground was no longer holy. The same thing happens here with this spot and this bush on this mountain. It's only because of the presence of the Most High is there. We know, and I always like to emphasize that the tabernacle, when it was standing, made the place holy. The temple is placed on a holy spot. That's the difference, a big difference. That's why even if the temple building is torn down, it's still considered the place holy because you got to build it in that same spot. So that's the difference here, where this is subject to change. And then after that, I like to just finish up a few more and then bring out some more high points without trying to be so loquacious in it. And it said, the 5th verse, the 6th verse, all right, 7th verse. And the Lord said, 7th verse, and the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people that are in Egypt, and have heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters, for I know their pain. I am come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of that land unto a good land, and a large, unto a land flowing with milk and honey, unto the place of the Canaanites, the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites. And now, behold, the cry of the children of Israel is come unto me. Moreover, I have seen the oppression wherewith the Egyptians oppressed them. Come now, therefore, and I will send thee unto Pharaoh, that thou mayest bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. And Moses said unto God, who am I that I should go unto Pharaoh, and that I should bring forth the children of Israel out of the Egypt? And he said, certainly I will be with thee, and this shall be a token unto thee, that I have sent thee when thou hast brought forth the people out of Egypt. You shall serve God upon this mountain. All right, that's a token. It's serving on the mountain. That's one token they talk about there. And Moses said unto God, behold, when I come unto the children of Israel, and shall say unto them, the God of your fathers has sent me unto you, and they shall say to me, what is his name? What shall I say unto him? And God said unto Moses, I am that I am. That's a weak translation, but I'm just reading what's in the book now. And he said, thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, I am has sent me unto you. And God said, moreover, unto Moses, thus thou shalt say unto the children of Israel, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has sent me unto you. This is my name forever, was the appellation, and this is my memorial to all generations. Go and gather the elders of Israel together, and say unto them, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, of Isaac, and of Jacob, had appeared unto me, saying, I have surely remembered you, and seen that which is done unto you in Egypt. Now, this verse here, coming from the 16th verse, that's important to remember, because the word pakad, account, just the password, God had told Joseph had told the children of Israel that God will remember them, take account of them. And here, Moses was told to go and gather the elders. Not that they assembled, he said gather them. All right, so they already had a certain status quo. You already know who the leaders is, but why the elders? Because somebody got to remember this was the passcode that Joseph said years ago. That's why only now that he focused on the passcode that was mentioned years ago, and when Joseph was leaving the scene and talking about God will surely remember you and bring you up out. So now, and when you look at it and you check it out in the Hebrew tongue, you'll find that word, and we got a citrus similar from the same word pekudei when it deals with the last part of Exodus, when it deals with the accounting of the tabernacle. All right. So we know right then and there that it's used in the sense of remembering, but it's also taking a tight accounting look at you and your valuation. So we know right then and there that he had to get the elders, because the young guys might not know that. They might not even remember that. People might not talk too much, but the leadership should know your history of your people. And that's what he's talking about. And then when he asked for a name, why would must God identify himself as a God of his father and the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, then why ask a name? One reason possibly could be that they've been crying out all these years because of the burden, and God didn't come to one of us. He came to somebody that's a fugitive from the land. outside the land, that's not even thinking about that, never lived in a saga or a problem like that. And here we getting beat down, and God never talked to us directly. So you coming from outside to bring it back in. So there's a lot of things you could discuss on reference to that. I just want to bring out that also, like I said, we're in the book of Shemot. We're talking about names, and we're constantly talking about names, but yet we have a lot of missing names that's asked for in this portion of Shemot. And then we know the story of Moses giving say the people don't believe. You know, he got 3 signs. You know, and then also he turned down the Creator 4 times, and the last time he turned the Creator down, he speaks about his speech impediment. You know, in the 4th chapter, it says in the 10th verse, and Moses said unto the Lord, O Lord, I am not a man of words, neither hitherto nor since thou hast spoken unto thy servant, for I am slow of speech and of slow tongue. All right, so now it said, not only I have a speech impediment, I don't even have the razzle dazzle to talk to people like an orator. So he's using 2 things there. We only focus, most of us focus on the speech impediment. But he said, I don't have that kind of skill to be able to, you know, the jargon. You know, I don't know how to, you know, finesse these words because you sending me to Pharaoh. I'm not a politician. I might have the intellect, but I can't articulate what I know. And you're going to find people like that have skills or intellect in certain areas, but they are poor teachers in the area that they have a lot of knowledge and skills in, because they cannot transmit that information to the next individual. They're not articulate enough. So a politician, if you're going to talk about rescuing the people, you got to explain the details why these people need to be rescued. And then are you bringing them to a better spot or not? And you got to recognize that they are being oppressed if you're rescuing on a rescue mission. And you're talking about subverting an economy that's based on slavery. So Moses recognized that and said, look, and he only used this at the very end. Why didn't he say this in the first time when God told him that you got to go there? Why he used this at the very end when he should have used this at first and said, look, you know I can't talk, but yet he's communing with the Creator. Because the Creator can understand everything. You know, I can't talk to man like that. You know, I can't get too deep for you. So the Creator didn't say he didn't have that problem, but the Creator let him know that, you know, who had made man's mouth, or who had made a man dumb or deaf or seeing or blind? Is not I the Lord? Now therefore go and I'll be with thy mouth and teach thee what thou shalt say. We know we got the book of Deuteronomy, Devarim, which means words. I'm not going to focus on it too much in that area there, but I'm going to bring out this here point that in Deuteronomy, in the book of Deuteronomy, when we look at that, is that he became an excellent orator because he developed into that over a period of time. He had to talk to the people, even teach them a song to remember. So the Creator, if the Creator gives you a vision, He's gonna make the provision for you. The Creator ain't gonna send you on a mission where you can't accomplish it. But anyway, the mission, he let him know from the beginning was gonna be a hard mission. We know automatically the Creator wanted to kill Moses later on. And that's interesting because now we know he had 2 sons, but we don't know which son was the one that would need to be circumcised. His wife saved him, and we don't know how she knew that would save Moses' life on the way down there. And he lingered, but we also know that God sent Aaron with him as well. So if people are being so oppressed, how Aaron's able to leave out of Egypt? They got a lot of, commentaries on reference to the tribe of Levi and stuff like that. That they wouldn't, one of the commentaries they would say rabbinically, is that they wasn't down with the national policy of working for the government. They stayed true to saying we're not down with this here building these cities and stuff like that, these storehouse cities. The other guys, they got caught up in there, but Tribe and Levy wasn't down with that per se. That's something you could discuss amongst different people. I'm not sharing one viewpoint that they say, but anyway, he was able to leave Egypt, and God called him out and told about Moses, and then he said he'd be happy to see his brother. So, there's a lot of things here. God was going to kill Moses. His wife saved him, and said some harsh stuff after she saved him. And then, him and Aaron going on their mission. So this is one of the things. And the last thing, we got before I go forward, I want to just focus on the name that's given, I am that I am, before I go forward into the Proverbs. And to leave open for discussion, because so much in this here particular portion of Shemot, and I said names always been the issue in the book of Shemot and the opening part. And you say, okay, he's described not a name, but as he's being known as the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And then he say, I am, or well, I will be. And in the Hebrew, it's Ayeh, Asher, Ayeh. That's the Hebrew word, Ayeh, Asher, Ayeh. I will be that which I'll be. So now, what are we saying here? Do God got to go into development? Because if you're talking about I will be, that means I'm going to change in the future to try to become something better or accommodate the situation. I mean, or you can't confine me with a name, because a name limits my boundaries. And so that those are some of the things that you need to discuss, because if God, and you say, we as human beings understand the word atah, spelled with an ayin, not the aleph. Ayin, tall, and hey, atah, that means now, N-O-W, now. So we understand the now, and we understand the future, becoming something. But do God have to become something more in the future than he is? And if he has to become something more in the future than what he is that the God we serve? Because evolution is supposed to bring about some kind of improvement. Do God need to improve? So when he say, I will be that which I will be, what is the connotation? And then God is not so much a noun, but a verb. God is about action. The God we serve is about action, making things move, doing things. He's not sitting there doing nothing. And yet he could bring everything out of nothing. So when we discuss, amongst my, certain circles, we have so much debates about what is the true name of God, what's the 72 names of God, what's the 7 original names of God, all that kind of stuff, and brothers focus on the name so much and have issues over, you should call him this, you should call him that. But if we say to Moses, I'm more than that, and you can't limit me to that, then I got to speak in the language of men, because that's all you're going to be able to understand, the language of men. I will be what I will be. And you can't understand that because you don't know what I am, and what I'm subject to be. So this is one of the things. So one of the things, the takeaways, and I always ask people to go back over the book of the Shemot, because just so much stuff that I just glossed over with the signs and the elders, the different intricacies of the story itself, how it's taking place, women's taking an active role against the government, and then also the man that's supposed to liberate us was a fugitive, and he didn't want to go back. and yet he had to assemble the elders. He said, well, if you had elders already there, why were they not already assembled? Did they ever have meetings? We read later on that a nation without counsel perish. So these are some of the things I'll take away and discuss going forward. And I hope you got something out of that part. Any mistakes from my own. And please, if you have issues, leave a question or a comment there, and I'll try to address it. And like I said, if I can, I'll address it. If not, I turn over Chief Boots, and he'll work with it. Okay, it's Proverbs 12. 13.
We're going to the book of Proverbs, chapter 13, starting from verse 1. Hallelujah.
All right, so just reminder, Proverbs is broken up into 5 different sections, say 5 different books or chapters or categories. But right now we're still in the second section of Proverbs. So we're in Proverbs 13. And like I said earlier, that it's telling you stuff you should already know, not stuff that you don't really know. But continue.
Proverbs 13, verse 1. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
A wise son is instructed of his father, but a scorner heareth not rebuke.
Okay. Right. Before we go there, because people say I run through it too fast. So, but I find it pretty much mostly, straight to the point. All right. So, it's talking about a wise son, but it has a discipline. That's discipline. All right. That's what makes him wise. His father disciplined him. And he has a certain type of discipline. That's why Musa is like a discipline. All right. And he tend to grow up decently because he has a certain discipline in the household. Today, we got all these new school rules of raising kids that tend, where, what I find is that, and one of the funniest things I find is that when I seen a toddler running in the park with a dog leash around him, held by his mother, where she could stretch it out like she's walking on, an animal or something like that there. And I said, wow, and I thought that was very strange, because usually the background I come from, if you're walking with your child and you say, stop, that boy stop on a dime like he pressed a button. So I find it, things is different, today as they raise their children. But go ahead a little further.
It reads, verse 2, a man shall eat good from the fruit of his mouth, but the desire of the faithless is violence. Okay,
right then and there. Yeah. So you got to have those that disregard moral law, the fruit of his mouth. That's what we're talking about, the faithless, unconsciously, and inevitable. Their desires will tend towards violence. That's a faithless individual. But go ahead, continue.
Verse 3, it reads, he that guardeth his mouth keepeth his life, but for him that openeth wide his lips, there shall be ruin.
All right, in other words, like when you read Ben Sirach and stuff like that, we're talking about a balance, because sometimes people be silent at the wrong time. Sometimes you need to speak up, and sometimes you need to be quiet. So you just can't say, all right, I'm gonna hold my peace, I ain't gonna say anything. So, and that's when you might need to say something. And then sometimes you might need to hold your peace simply because you're not equipped to say the right thing at that time. So you got to develop a balance. And too often in society, people see stuff go on that's really, abominable, unrighteous, and don't say a thing about it. And when those that do say something about it, they might be persecuted in a corrupt society. All right, but go ahead, continue.
Verse 4 reads, the soul of the sluggard desireth, and hath nothing, but the soul of the diligent shall be abundantly gratified.
All right, a guy that don't want to work, if you don't want to work, you ain't have anything. But if you're diligent worker, you'll be gratified because you put effort in having and attaining. All right. But, so the soul of the sluggard desireth and have nothing because he ain't putting no work in. That's simple enough. Anytime you don't put no work in, you're going to want everything. But when you put work in, you're accomplishing something. You're getting a certain type of satisfaction because it said, I'm earning this. All right. All right. Continue.
Verse 5. A righteous man hateth lying, but a wicked man behaveth vilely and shamefully.
Okay, hold it right there. All right. Who love lying? That's what we got to ask. I said the righteous man. Do the wicked like people lying to them? They don't like lying to themselves. They might practice that. They might be part of their MO, but they don't like it being done and told to them. So what is the verse saying? You know what I mean? But a wicked man, he would lie to try to hurt somebody vilely, shamefully. You know what I mean? He behaves shamefully because he'll talk about people and lie about people in the most derogatory fashion. All right, continue.
Verse 6.
And also righteousness, verse 6, go ahead. I'm ahead of you.
Righteousness guardeth him that is upright in the way, but wickedness overthroweth the sinner.
No, so righteousness and wickedness is personified as an entity in this here verse. And they tell you one of the rewards, so more like wisdom and folly, being defined as an entity in comparison, marketing himself when we're reading other Psalms to this past. All right, continue.
Verse 7 reads, There is that pretendeth himself rich, yet hath nothing. There is that pretendeth himself poor, yet have great wealth.
All right, hold right there. Now, then you still got to strike a balance. All right, because if you pretend you're rich, you spend above your means. You get, one thing for sure, and my young days, I did this too. Credit card, I spend it up so fast, and then, well, I'm a lot older than a lot of people, so $500, a lot of money on a credit card when I was coming up. So you going shopping, buying the latest outfits and stuff like that, and they ain't thinking about paying it back and everything like that, and they ain't keeping a steady job. So and you want that look, but then you have that look, clothes wise or whatever the case is, but don't have no place to rest your head or have no food to eat. Some people do live like that. That's why and let you know. And a person that pretended himself poor has great wealth. Now, that's a danger too. You got to strike a balance in that, because you can pretend to be poor and have a lot of wealth, but you become a miser, where you're not only stingy, to other people, but you even stingy to yourself. Because some people will neglect themselves, and if you coming from New York, you hear a lot of stories about people dying that's eating animal food, pet food, and all that kind of stuff, that you find, thousands of dollars in their couch or in a chair or in a pillow, stitched in. But yet they eating, pet food and stuff like that there. And won't go to the doctor. One of the things, and this is true. My son find it hard to believe, but guys in my age bracket that's from New York City and maybe other places, but basically from New York City, will know that that they've been able to witness this. That I seen people that wasn't. I mean, they was wasn't wealthy, but they weren't dirt poor, eating kennel ration dog food with scrambled eggs. It's the same as hash browns, and I seen that in New York. So my sons find it a little difficult to believe, but I know people actually did that. Just pop open a can of kennel ration, that was the name of it, that brand, kennel ration dog food, and have some eggs and naturally some lard, because that was the main grease everybody used back then. But they wouldn't use Crisco and all that kind of stuff, and cook it up and say that's good eating. It's good eating. That's what they used to do. So, you know what I mean? But they actually, animal food, pet food is on a lower standard for us health-wise than the food that passes the inspection. So, you know, just to bring that out. All right, continue. 7.
It reads, verse 8, the ransom of a man's life are his riches, but the poor heareth no threatening.
All right, what that means that nobody gonna kidnap a poor dude. They don't kidnap. I mean, nobody gonna be talking about, you know what I mean, targeting a poor guy because he has nothing. So where that become a defense for him, so to speak, because he don't reach the radar. It's you know what I mean, where a guy that get too wealthy and not well liked, you know, he become a target. If you become too wealthy and not well liked, you know, a lot of people that's so wealthy. And one thing I used to like about, you know, when I hear from about Mike Tyson, different, you know, guys like him, that he got, you know, a substantial amount of money, but he could travel in a lot of areas that's people that have not quite as much money as he got, but they know they have money that they can't travel in those areas, you know, because, you know, he didn't distance himself too far from the people at one time. You know what I'm saying? So that's what you got to be careful with, that you become so wealthy that you become a target. And not only you could become a target, your loved ones could become a target. Because the wealthy is always the target. It's never the poor man that's the target, you know, for ransom. And that's what I'm talking about, you know, man's life or his riches. Continue.
The light of the righteous rejoiceth, but the lamp of the wicked shall be put out. That was verse 9. Verse 10. By pride cometh only contention, but with the well advised is wisdom. Wealth gotten by vanity shall be diminished, but he that gathereth little by little shall increase.
All right, hold on right then. All right, before we go further, you know, they had these Ponzi schemes today. They had quick get rich schemes back in ancient times. This, you know, I mean, we only think about the Ponzi schemes and different things, the stock markets and all this other stuff to make money fast, turnover fast, flip this here and flip that real quick. In ancient times, they had their own scams for their time to raise money quick. They flip things over quick. And the thing is that even then, they let you know that you can't look to get rich wealthy. If you get work and getting a little by little, not only appreciate it more, but you could also keep an eye on it better, you know, in that sense. And it will stay with you more. So it's telling you about, there's no such thing as quick rich. And this is, you know, I mean, thousands of years ago to tell you about, there's no quick rich, quick way to get rich, get wealthy. All right, continue.
It reads, verse 12. Hope deferred maketh the heart sick, but desire fulfilled is a tree of life.
Everybody, I mean, sometimes when you get disappointments in life, you feel bad. But life comes with some disappointment. But you're gonna feel bad with disappointments in life, you know. But you know, and an occasional achievement spurs you on. So when you be successful and I say, oh, I did this here, this came off good, this came off good. You be motivated. So it's telling you right there, expect, you know what I mean, you know, when you have a failure in life, you're supposed to feel a certain way. You're not supposed to say, oh man, I might have messed this up, feel bad. You know, I might have messed this up. I don't feel bad about it, you know what I mean, because I ain't the only one that messed it up, you know, or something like that. You can't do that. You know, if you feel bad and disappointment, so you could be motivated to do right and then try to get things together. Go ahead, continue.
It reads, verse 13, whoso despiseth the word shall suffer thereby, but he that feareth the commandment shall be rewarded.
All right, so in other words, some people don't like authority. That's all it is, you know. And without authority, without a discipline, you can't appreciate your movements in life. You can't appreciate your progress in life without a certain type of discipline. It's the discipline that helps you. you know what I mean, to be able to discriminate what is good and what is bad. You know, so some people say, I don't want to, there's too many rules for this. I don't want to follow this because of the rules. But it's the rules and discipline that you get that helps you in the long run to make the wise choices. Because the thing is that if it wasn't for those discrimination, you won't listen to wise teaching. You know, which is the next verse coming on the 14th. Continue.
Verse 14 reads, the teaching of the wise is a fountain of life, to depart from the snares of death.
All right, keep on.
Good understanding giveth grace, but the way of the faithless is harsh.
Okay. All right. So that right there and there, we're looking at grace, as a personality quality, or understanding oneself as well as others. Because if you don't understand yourself, you will never understand another individual. And a lot of people just look at the next individual and try to figure them out. But the first thing you're supposed to figure out, and the first one you're supposed to figure out, is yourself. All right. Continue.
Reads, every prudent man dealeth with forethought, but a fool unfoldeth folly.
All right, in other words, right then and there, if given have a chance, a fool will make a fool of himself in public. Another guy should think this thing through. Say, look, I can't make a move that quick. I can't bust that move that quick. Let me think this over. Let it marinate a little bit with me before I make this move. That's the only wise thing to do, because you're thinking about the consequences. All right, success or failure. 18th verse.
Verse 17 reads, a wicked messenger falleth into evil, but a faithful ambassador is health.
That means for the one that sent them and the one that he's being sent to. All right. A good ambassador got a good message for both sides. He making the other guy who sent them feel good that I entrusted this guy. Like Abraham sent that servant to pick a wife for Isaac. So that was like an ambassador, for Abraham. They get him, they get a wife for his son Isaac, and it was blessing and matter of fact, I think if I recall correctly, that Laban said, "Come in, thou who are blessed of the Lord." You know what I mean? So when he seen that an unnamed servant, so he was good on both ends. He was good. He was good for Abraham because he went to get the mission, got the wife, and Laban, who had to be a wicked guy, said, "Come on, thou who are blessed of the Lord." So you see this guy's all right. So it's healthy for both ends. Keep going.
It reads, verse 18, poverty and shame shall be to him that refuseth instruction, but he that regardeth reproof shall be honored.
Okay, that's pretty clear. What I mean? If you don't want to listen, and you think you got it down pat and you keep messing up, then you're going to have shame and poverty. You have a lot of failures in life. 19.
Verse 19 reads, the desire accomplished is sweet to the soul, and it is an abomination to fools to depart from evil.
Let's look at that last part. Abomination for fools to depart from evil. In other words, and talking about evil now, not just as mental deficiency, being a fool. If he's doing good, I mean, if he's successful in doing evil, he said, I'm gonna keep this thing going, because I'm doing okay. And a lot of times, and I like to, just go back in history a little bit, and it's still today. A lot of guys that deal drugs to the community, when they deal drugs to the community, I mean, real harsh drugs that could hurt an individual, where they got to steal, pillage, rob, all kind of stuff, for that. And they making this money, big knots all the time, and they're successful, and they get a little run. They don't want to stop. They say, I can't get out the game, man, because the money coming in too fast. I'm doing too good. I mean, my lifestyle changed. I can't go back to, striking, punching a 9 to 5 or 8 to 4. I can't do that. So And so that's what it's saying about a fool. Because if he got a little success and he being vile and wicked or doing something that's not correct, he ain't gonna stop. He got to be stopped, and that's what happens. Come sheep.
Verse 20. He that walketh with wise men shall be wise, but the companion of fools shall smart for it.
All right, just remember your company. Keep on. 21.
Evil pursueth sinners, but to the righteous good shall be repaid.
Okay, that means right then that if you're a sinner, something coming after you. Just point blank. It pursue you. Be like a train. It's coming on another train. Keep going.
Verse 22, it reads, a good man leaveth an inheritance to his children's children, and the wealth of the sinner is laid up for the righteous.
All right. So in other words, it says, like God showed favor, unto 1,000 generations of them that love him. All right. So in other words, what inheritance you leave for your children? It's not monetary. They're going to definitely go on and on and on and on and on because something could happen on the way. It's the moral instructions, your godly instruction, the wisdom that you gave that will help them survive continually. That goes on and on and on and on. That's why God said, I'm showing mercy to 1,000 of them that love me and keep my commandments. I don't need mercy if I'm doing what you say, then I should get paid. That would be the normal thinking. But I'm doing it wrong, but I meant to get it right. Because I think I'm trying to follow your doctrine. So a lot of times, the only thing that goes on, your kids and grandkids, my kids that's grown today to talk about, but you was, you kind of rough in the fall as a father business. You might have did this and that and the other, or you might have created chaos, but you did give us, Torah instructions and this instructions and that instructions, and I usually retort and say, look, there wasn't no parenthood book for me. Each child it was an experimental child. As I go down, I get a little better. That's why most of us become better grandparents than we are parents. Because you get a little better. And then don't let it be a child and a girl and a boy. Now both of them become experiments. Your first girl gonna be an experiment, your first boy gonna be an experiment, and you're gonna try to get it right. And the next guy, but he got a different character. So this is life. But the thing is that your moral value should be the same for everybody. And that's what carries on beyond your from generation to generation. All right, last few verses.
Verse 23, much food is in the tillage of the poor, but there is that is swept away by want of righteousness.
Okay, keep going.
He that spareth his rod hateth his son, but he that loveth him chasteneth him betimes.
Early. You don't wait till the boy get out of hand too far where you can't do nothing to him. You telling the guy, and he's 6'9" and you 5'3", talking about, man, but I tell you about this here. Get up in there, go in your room, turn off the TV and all that kind of stuff. Now you got to get him before he gets 6'3". When before he even get 3 feet 6. You got to be on him. Because when you correct them, then you bend them, then you actually saving them. You can control them, but you can't control them after you let them get out of hand. And today they want you let the child be a child. What kind of child you want to raise? That's what you got to deal with. And the last verse.
The last verse reads, verse 25. The righteous eateth to the satisfying of his desire, but the belly of the wicked shall want. Hallelujah. All
right. And so that means right in there, you got to have a limit. You got to have a discipline. You must have a discipline on what you deal with. And so I hope you got some of what I said. I know I'm a couple minutes over in the normal time, but any mistakes from my own, and you can leave something in the chat. If you have any issues about what I said, and everybody, discuss those different points I left on record, for you. With that, I say, Shalom Aleichem, Shabbat Shalom.
Torah Nasik, and like he said, like Nasik Zurishaddai said, if you have any comments, if you have any questions in regards to the Sidra, even the future Sidra or the lesson that he taught in Proverbs, it's imperative. Just leave just leave a comment on the bottom of this video. Leave a comment in the chat. We'll try to get back to it, but in the chat might be a little bit different. I'm not sure if Nasik go back and looks at the chat. You look at the chat. All right, so you can leave it in the chat or you can leave it in the comments, and then he'll get back to it, because this is what this is about. If you don't understand something or if you need an answer on something, just leave the question and he'll get back to it if he could answer it. Hallelujah. Blessed be the Most High God. Thank you, Nasik, once again. May the Most High God bless you. Shalom, shalom.
Shalom.
Let's get knowledge, wisdom, understanding. We'll do our standing. All praises to the Most High, His laws and commandments. The hot CHOKMAH BINAH here to push it through your speakers. Judgment, truth, and love should be coming from the leaders. Yeah, knowledge, wisdom, understanding. We'll do our standing. All praises to the Most High, His laws and commandments. The hot CHOKMAH BINAH here to push it through your speakers. Judgment, truth, and love should be coming from the leaders. Yeah.